please.
Good evening. Director Diana Mayer,
Present.
Director Ranjiv Kush,
Here.
and Vice President Jed Smith.
Here.
Currently not present are Directors Larry Russell and Matt Sampson.
Great. And Matt Sampson's not going to be able to make it this evening, so I'll help move things along. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Great. And with that, any public comment?
There are none.
Roll call, please.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Director Kush,
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Now we're going to be moving on to closed session. And is there any public comment on the closed session?
There are none.
Terrific. Okay. We will reconvene shortly. Thank you. All right. Terrific. We'll reconvene after our closed session, which we have no items to report. We'll move on to the open meeting. So welcome, everybody. We have a nice, fun, robust evening. We reconvened at 6:30 p.m. Any public comment on non-agenda matters, please?
Yes, we have several. The first three speakers are Ruth Dawson, Martha Davis, and Matt Pickett. Go ahead, Ms. Dawson.
Hello. My comments pertain to the Nicasio Spillway project. My name's Ruth Dawson. I'm a resident of Nicasio. I've been a resident of Nicasio for over 25 years. Excuse me. And I'm president of the Nicasio Landowners Association. So first, thank you for the extension to the comment period of the NOP. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank you for the formation of the ad hoc committee. It is undisputed that serious flooding and bank erosion in Nicasio and Halleck Creeks, upgradient from the Nicasio Reservoir, have adversely impacted the Nicasio School, Nicasio roads, and private properties. How will Marin Water address these current impacts as it develops the proposed Nicasio Spillway Modification Project to raise the level of the reservoir by roughly another 4.5 to 5.5 feet? Given present conditions and intensifying rain events, these impacts to the Nicasio community must be addressed before progress can be made on the proposed Nicasio Spillway Modification Project. On another note, on the Marin Water website, you list the following as a benefit for the Nicasio Spillway project. Quote, "The project is a relatively cost-effective way to achieve additional water storage capacity in a shorter time frame as compared to other longer-term water supply alternatives within the district's water supply roadmap. The additional water supply yielded would help increase the district's water supply resiliency during future droughts." I am confused about this statement, given that the reservoir currently does not fill to capacity in a drought year. Would love some clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Good evening, members of the board and staff. My name is Martha Davis. I am also a Nicasio resident, and I serve on the board of the directors of the Nicasio Landowners Association. I also want to thank you for extending the scoping comment deadline for the proposed spillway project and for establishing the ad hoc committee. And we look forward to working with the committee in the weeks ahead on this proposal. Today, I am speaking to raise a question that has puzzled me since the first time I saw Marin Water's official inundation maps for the proposed spillway project. My understanding is that these maps are intended to reveal all the properties that you expect to be impacted by water if Nicasio reservoir level is raised by roughly 4.5 to just under 5.5 feet. I also understand that your operation plan is to maximize Nicasio storage during wet seasons. Here's the question. Why don't the inundation maps align with FEMA's current flood maps, which show where Nicasio is likely to flood right now, especially during the wet months, especially when Nicasio Reservoir is at its current maximum level? The other day I was playing Scrabble with my family and it hit me. Most people think that inundation and flooding mean basically the same thing. But technically, it's not true. I looked it up. Inundation specifically means permanently covering land with water, while flooding means the water is there temporarily, such as when we have intense rainstorms and the creeks can't hold the water and they overflow. So the spillway project inundation maps literally and only show the areas of Nicasio that you expect to be more or less permanently covered with water. And now I understand why your staff so firmly defended the maps as being state-of-the-art accurate. What the spillway inundation maps don't reveal is how much worse flooding in our Nicasio community will likely be as a result of raising the reservoir's water level and maximizing the storage, particularly during the wet season as you currently propose. I don't think the public should have to guess, based on a narrow definition of inundation, how many more properties, homes and roads in Nicasio may be temporarily flooded in those wet periods as a result of the proposed project. You have been working on this project for at least a year. You have many paid consultants in addition to your excellent staff, and you have the FEMA maps. Today, I respectfully request that your staff release revised maps as soon as possible that show combined the expected project impacts of inundation and flooding on our Nicasio community. Director Cush, I hope you and Director Sampson, as members of the ad hoc committee, will agree with me that these improved maps will be extremely helpful when you visit our community in June.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speakers are Matthew Pickett, Phil Sauter, and then Casey on Zoom.
Hi, my name is Matt Pickett, and I am a Nicasio resident, a parent at the Nicasio School, and a trustee of the school's board of directors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. On April 30, Marin Water issued a notice of preparation which details planned modification to the spillway and the inundation maps. These inundation maps are alarming, particularly the figure labeled NOP-2B. That figure shows that Marin Water plans to inundate somewhere around 20% of the school district's property, including most likely the school's well, septic tank, and playground. The reservoir would expand throughout the lowest lying parts of the school's property, and when full, would ultimately sit merely a few feet from some of the school's buildings. The expansion of the reservoir into school property detailed by the inundation maps isn't the issue that gives me the most concern, though. It's what's not even really covered in the NOP at all. Flooding at the upstream end of the reservoir where the school is located is an ongoing problem at the existing spillway levels that has only gotten worse over time. I live directly on Nicasio Creek, almost a mile upstream from the school, and I regularly witness 8-foot water level rises behind my house, and that's where the creek is 65 feet wide. This is at a location that NOP maps indicate that no inundation will occur, but is clearly already susceptible to major flooding. I believe that it is not an exaggeration to say that raising the reservoir without construction of some kind of unknown major engineering project at the upstream end of the reservoir to mitigate flooding will not only negatively impact the school, but create so much additional flooding risk that this is truly an existential crisis for our school. Yet the NOP details nothing about any engineering efforts except at the spillway end of the reservoir. Marin Water staff also told us at our school board meeting after submitting the NOP that they were unaware of the extent of the existing flooding problem and have collected no data about existing flooding levels, stream flows, or other inputs required to even begin planning such an engineering project or properly responding to the incoming storm. With that in mind, I urge Marin Water to do your due diligence to measure and understand the true flooding conditions during at least one average wet season and plan this project in close collaboration with our community rather than in isolation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phil Sauter, then Casey, and then after Casey, it's Ms. Turfo.
Good evening. There's a water tank on Lower Conifer and Woodacre that I pass by regularly on hikes and when we're pulling broom from adjacent county open space. A few weeks ago, I noticed a flowering broom plant just outside the fence and another flowering plant inside the fence next to the tank itself. As Director Sampson can tell you, flowering broom plants are weeks away from developing seed pods that will open and scatter when the weather's warm enough, and they can throw thousands of long-lasting seeds a dozen feet in all directions. So getting rid of the plants before they create a long-lasting seed bank is critical in preventing the spread of this relentlessly invasive plant. At the last board meeting, I asked Darren Machado if someone could meet me there with a key. It wouldn't take a whole crew, and I could bring a reed wrench and be in and out of there in 5 minutes. Darren told me that the site was his team's responsibility and he'd take care of it. A couple days later, I got a call from Mark Adine, who told me that they'd removed the broom and asked me to check the site and make sure they got the right one. I walked by there that afternoon, and sure enough, the broom plants were gone. It was a prime example of early detection, rapid response, and I thanked him and asked if there was anyone else I could thank. Mark said it was the whole facilities maintenance department that was responsible. So I'd like to express my appreciation to that entire group and Mark and Darren individually, and share with the board my belief that here's another center of excellence within Marin Water.
Casey and then Ms. Turfo, please.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Casey Breyer. My husband Bill and I have lived along Nicasio Creek for 39 years. We have 2 acres and the creek runs through the middle of it. MMWD has no easement onto our property. We have personally witnessed the environmental changes over these years, and we'd like to share what we've seen and experienced. We have also shared photos with the other residents and MMWD since it is not visible to anyone except the affected property owners. Approximately 40 years ago, before we purchased the property, the creek was dredged by MMWD. The excess gravel from the creek bed on our property was transferred to our yard and was very evident. Neighbors that have lived here over 70 years have told us they remember Nicasio Creek and Hallett Creek being dredged after the dam was built, and huge truckloads of gravel were piled up by the Corp Yard and used for various county projects. In 2003, we contacted MMWD because the creek bed was rising and the flooding was getting worse. A representative came out and agreed that the creek should have been dredged every 7 years or so. Between our property downstream to the Shones property, there are mounds, some as high as 8 feet, lodged in the trees that need to be removed to allow proper water flow. The erosion is extremely visible and many trees have fallen as a result. It is also very evident of the creek bed rising as seen in the photo of the culvert pipe. It used to be so high that you couldn't reach it and only about 1 foot of pipe was showing. Now it is a couple of feet above the creek bed and about 18 feet of pipe shows. An MMWD staff should have been out here today to verify those photos. We have brought these problems to the attention of MMWD also through various written correspondence. We just receive excuses such as there's no money, they didn't believe there was a settlement problem, or they thought dredging would cause erosion. Well, not dredging has caused mass erosion and excessive flooding. We also know that there was a lawsuit filed by our previous neighbor, Bob Ferguson, against MMWD for not doing this, resulting in the flooding of his swimming pool. Ferguson had told us there was a settlement. We feel these problems need to be addressed before even considering adding more water by raising the reservoir. Our concerns are standing water in our backyard for 4 to 5 months out of the year, breeding mosquitoes and algae. Our property value and use of our property, by looking at the maps MMWD has provided, we would not be able to access the other half of our property. We have even greater concern for our neighbors downstream, the Seabolds, the Shones, the school, the Frankie's Cheese Factory, and Dulcini's, and the overwhelming impact to all of us as a historical community, some of our houses being around 150 years old. Thank you for listening, and please review the photos that were provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. And last, we have Ms. Turfo.
Good evening. I was so happy when I found on your website that almost all of the board are specifically supportive of water conservation. And yet the legacy of the board will be a brand new pipeline racing through our most precious nature, just to satisfy the 40% summer outdoor use of mostly private customers and about 600 super users. In your recent presentation then, on the other side, I saw a page called Work Plan Priorities. And there it talks about reducing portable water. I thought this is really fabulous. Now reducing water potable is a priority. But sadly, your goals for reducing potable water use look really unambitious. In fact, the plan is that we use more water in the future than we use right now. You rightfully, and I applaud you for that, pride yourself for all the water that has been conserved during the last drought, where your marine customers proved with your support that they can conserve water and still live a happy life. Sadly, the trend is going backwards and it seems to be forgotten. And your chart shows that this year, the water consumption is going up again. Significantly. So again, where's this board going? What are really the priorities? A good indicator is to look where the money is being spent. And it looks like it's being spent for the lawns and a lifestyle that this land cannot support long-term. And yet, on the other side, again, it says that you are planning for the next 7 generations. And that is so hopeful. But Russian River is clearly not going to be a long-term co-parent for Marin when it comes to water needs. So just imagine the outcome if you instead got behind conservation. Most of Marin's inhabitants would be right with you. And there's a myriad of possibilities. Most of them have been named here from you, the audience. And thinking about the next 7 generations, or what would they want from us? I think they would want us to preserve what we had, not cut down another tree, and find solutions like working with groundwater, replanting, trying to cool down, all that will really benefit like my daughter and maybe her daughter and the daughter after that. And I'm not even counting to 7. So I'm asking you, with or without the pipeline, to really make conservation a priority and not go up with revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Terrific. Thank you, everybody. I think we'll move on to directors and general managers announcements. Ben.
A brief comment. Wanted to share that last week I participated in a National Science Foundation Water Science Technology Board meeting on water system wildfire nexus. And through the day, we identified potential future areas of research, which was really the intent of the meeting, including areas of how, in an event of a wildfire coming into an urban environment, different approaches to secure the water so you don't have water loss, looking at automatic valves that shut, remote valves, manual operations. That's one area. Another area is post-fire contamination that generally everyone's finding after these events has to do with loss of pressure and backflow of the contaminated water into the system and the best way to deal with it. And also some kind of innovative ideas. One I wanted to share is the idea of supporting, promoting, perhaps in some way, lack of a better term, mist curtains for critical infrastructure. So you'd imagine maybe a hospital. They'd have to take water out of a tank versus a municipal system because we don't want draws on the system, people leaving their irrigation on. But in fact, staff, we were talking that this may be interesting to look at for Bontempi water treatment plant, right? Critical structure, we definitely have water there. And that would, so anyway, a lot of interesting ideas that the industry will look at and vet and do additional research.
Thank you. Terrific. Larry, any announcements?
No.
Great. Ranjiv?
Yeah, thanks, Jed. Last week I attended the Association for California Water Agencies, or ACWA, Spring Conference in Monterey, together with our General Counsel, Molly McLean, and our staff attorney, Jared Mills, who both presented at committee meetings. Just an update those that don't know, Aqua is the largest regional water association in the U.S. and probably one of the larger water associations in the world. Being there was a good reminder of how central water is to our state and how much attention and investment California gives to water. Just a couple of interesting highlights for me from the meeting. Jed, last week you spoke about technology for reservoir. So this was developed by the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography at UC San Diego. They had a really good work session at the meetings and showed some of the results from the evaluation of the FIRO system in Lake Mendocino, which were really encouraging and has now actually motivated the full integration of FIRO into the water control manual for Lake Mendocino. That's actually a big step away from the traditional methods of reservoir operation for flood control. And now FIRO is either being evaluated or planned for evaluation at Lake Sonoma and 4 other California reservoirs. The Center for the Western Weather and Water Extremes is partially supported by 19 water agencies that comprise, in California, that comprise the Water Affiliates Group. And I'm really happy that Marin Water is one of the members. Paul, thanks a lot for making that happen. And following their session, I think as their science continues to advance, we are well placed to benefit from potentially longer range weather forecasts that could help guide our own reservoir management. There were a couple of policy and operational items that I learned about, which are maybe less directly relevant to us here in Marin, but still were, very interesting to hear. One is the implementation of California's Sustainable Groundwater Act, SGMA, which has been a long time in coming and still has a long way to go before full implementation. Under SGMA, farmers are facing restrictions on groundwater extraction for irrigation, and these restrictions are already driving down agricultural land values. This was a big topic of concern among the irrigation districts at the conference. Other policy topic of discussion was our governor's proposed legislative measures to fast track the Delta Conveyance Project by simplifying permitting, streamlining judicial review, and confirming funding authority. The Delta Conveyance Project may be a big indicator of whether we can get back to building big things in California. Finally, on the legal side, Molly, one item really got my attention, which is the inverse condemnation cases that are being filed against Southern California water suppliers following the recent fires. Larry, I think you've been somewhat involved with this down in Los Angeles. And my understanding, Molly, you may have more insight, is that under inverse condemnation, water suppliers can be held liable for losses even without any proven negligence, essentially no proof of fault. And I think this application of inverse condemnation could become a major problem if it continues to expand for most water suppliers in California, including in Marin.
Yeah, thank you, Director Cush. I would say that the current litigation is trying to make that argument that water purveyors should be responsible under inverse condemnation legal theories. I would certainly not take that position. I think that that there is concern, but I think the jury's still out, no pun intended, on just where those legal issues, the litigation will land. But Aqua is being proactive, and the Legal Affairs Committee has formed a working group. I've volunteered myself to participate, looking at potential legislation or other things that can be done to help address those concerns for water agencies, and just really looking at, what is a water agency's mission and purpose? Is it, are we living up to a standard to be expected to be able to deliver water during these firestorms? I think there is no case law yet that has made that determination. That is actually something that the water agencies would be held, the water districts would be held accountable for. So it's a big issue, certainly looming, but no decision yet, and still more work to do in looking at those risks.
So we keep our fingers crossed, but this was an illustration for me of why an association that can represent us on these
Yes.
types of things is so important.
Certainly. And we had a really good session on that. And I think, one of the other things that the Legal Affairs Committee does specifically for Aqua is to support amicus briefs in cases where, for example, maybe there was a decision at the trial court level and then an appeal, whatever side, the interests of the water agencies is on, the Legal Affairs Committee would evaluate then supporting amicus brief in the case to the Court of Appeals or even the Supreme Court in some instances. So that's also something that we would be looking potentially forward to in these cases.
Got it. Thank you. That's it, Chad.
Great, thank you. Okay. Ranjiv, thank you for going to that conference. I think Marin Water's presence there is important, and I really appreciate you coming back and sharing some of the ideas about how we can do better. So much appreciated. I was able to spend some time out at Nicasio Reservoir this past weekend, visiting some friends and having also recently visited the Dulcini family. And I just encourage us to continue our process. We are very early. This is not the end. And I encourage the staff to meet with every single landowner that thinks they might be impacted by this and continue the environmental reviews that need to get done. And let's do it right. So I appreciate the participation of the community and the ad hoc that's been set up. And I look forward to seeing this through one way or another. This is not a done deal. But we'll do this properly, and I'm here to help in any way that you want. I was also able to participate in the Mill Valley Outdoor Art and Garden Club. And Phil, I want to just thank you for your positive energy as you come here. I'd say a model citizen coming up with ideas about how we can do better. So often we get fingers pointed at us, but the Outdoor Art and Garden Club had a spectacular review this past weekend of sustainable gardens, reduction of plant use, reduction of water use, and water efficiency efforts that they continue to point to the work that Adrian is doing, that our team is doing for water efficiency and conservation. I'm super proud of it. And I'm even prouder that it is the #1 thing on our water supply roadmap is conservation. It's the first thing we point to. It's the best way that we can save going forward. And yes, there are other ideas that we're looking at too. So very, very high positive energy effort. And thank you, Phil, for showing up and continuing to fight the good fight. Any other comments? All good. Moving on to item 7, no committee reports this last 2 weeks. And so we'll move on to the consent items. Is there any, can I have a motion to have the consent items approved, please?
So moved.
Second? Great, thanks. Any public comments on the consent items?
There are none.
Okay, great. Just as a quick review, we're approving the minutes, we're approving the general manager's report, we're approving a recommendation, if we vote yes, on the purchase of water treatment chemicals, and to the tune of $2.5 million, which is an ongoing effort, and then a Pine Mountain effort as well. So let's have a roll call, please.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Kush,
Aye.
and Vice President Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Now, regular items, number 9, we have Sean, and this is about the awarding of a contract for Lagunitas Creek. Thank you very much.
Good evening, directors. Sean Horn, Director of Watershed Resources. I'm joined with Jonathan Kaler, our Fisheries Manager. The item before you is award of contract for Lagunitas Creek Coho Habitat Restoration Project, Phase 1B. The lowest qualified bidder on this project was Rehack General Engineering. And so we have two representatives from Rehack here this evening with us. And the recommended action for this is to approve a resolution authorizing the contract award to Rehack in the amount of $2,175,000. To support this item, we did prepare a presentation to provide a bit of an update on what the district will be doing under Phase 1B of the project. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jonathan, who will walk us through our presentation this evening.
Evening, directors. I'm getting used to seeing these same pictures, so I'll be looking forward to the next phase so I can give you updated slides when we give these presentations. So as you'll recall, the Lagunitas project is divided up into 3 phases. We successfully completed phase 1A last year, and that went well. We're looking to construct phase 1B this year, and we're currently developing plans and permits for phase 2 for construction in the next couple of years. So things are moving along here. As we reported at the most recent watershed committee, the structures that we placed last year got immediately tested. We had the biggest flows in Lagunitas Creek that we had in some 20 years. They structurally held up, so we're happy with the design. We're implementing these same kinds of structures in the next phase with some minor tweaks, but really structurally, we were pleased with the way that they performed. Again, the approach here is to add wood and gravel and rock material to increase coho, salmon, and other sensitive species habitat for in Lagunitas Creek. So for phase 1B, we advertised back on May 7th. We opened bids. We received 2 bids. We reviewed those with our engineering department, determined that both were responsive and responsible. The top bid was from Rehack General Engineering, or the bid rank number 1 was from Rehack Engineering in the amount of $2,175,000. You can see the construction cost from our engineer's estimate was $2,388,300. So we've determined that bid is the low bid, and what we're looking to do is request approval of a resolution to award the contract to Rehack General Engineering. This next phase of the project, as I've mentioned in past presentations, does involve a little bit some different work, including this addition of gravel in large quantities. So we'll be providing updates on that and the monitoring that we have planned, including this pit tagged kind of approach to see how the structures are working and how the gravel is actually functioning compared to what we expect. So the project is slated to start August 1. We're held to that date primarily because of northern spotted owl presence in the job area. We'll finish up November 21st, although in-stream work will end probably in October. And yeah, looking forward to another good year of coho salmon spawning.
Great. Just 2 final things to note on this item. We are going to be using the Leo T. Cronin fish viewing area as a construction staging zone. So there will be some closures over the period of construction for that area. So that's a primary visitor entrance to the watershed. So we'll be signing that early and then developing some kiosk like interpretive signage that we'll put in after the fact to really help people understand this restoration work that we're doing, and specifically the gravel augmentation, which is a really innovative approach and one that the district has not done at this scale and is really important to be doing underneath or below reservoirs, which trap that sediment. So really exciting project. I'm looking forward to it. And as Jonathan mentioned, the recommended action for the board is approval of the resolution awarding the contract.
Terrific. Diana, any comments? Okay, great. Ranjiv?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, John, for the update. We've been hearing about this now for quite a while, and it's always remains really encouraging. I hope everyone appreciates that the Water District is spending millions of dollars on ensuring that the quality of our environment and the diversity of our nature flourishes well into the long term. This is an important part of that effort. And, It's great to see it go forward. I think not only, from my understanding, not only are we making major investments to improve the salmon habitat here in Lagunitas Creek, but we'll be also learning a lot from this effort around habitat improvement that others will be able to use as well. So a really nice dual benefit, I think, from all of the investment. Thanks a lot.
Great. Larry, any comments? Is this going to be brought to the Lagunitas Creek TAC? group
Yeah,
meeting?
we provide updates
Yep.
to them pretty much every meeting.
Yeah, I think we have one coming up, so
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
exactly.
All right, terrific. Any public comment on this matter, Terry?
Yeah, there's no questions. It's usually just a comment.
There are none.
Okay, great. And so I'd like to see if there's a motion to approve this resolution, please.
So moved.
Second.
Terrific. And a roll call, please. Thank you, Terry.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Kush,
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Sean and Jonathan, for the presentation. Moving on to item 9B. This is a resolution to amend the Department of Water, Urban, and Multi-Benefit Drought Relief Grant and receive legislative update.
Good evening, board members. I'm joined with Haley Eligio, our principal grant and legislative analyst with the district for this particular item. So the district was awarded a grant from the Department of Water Resources from the Urban Multi-Benefit Program during the 2021 drought. That project was initially for planning of the emergency pipeline over the Richmond Bridge. Due to the winter rains that did occur, we were able to shift that project to our strategic water supply study. And so a formality or housekeeping item for this grant is to do a resolution that officially changes and approves that shift for the project. And then also to help us with the closeout of the grant, because we have exceeded the timeline, we're extending the date for the end completion date, and that'll allow us to put together our final report and kind of close that out succinctly. So that's the first item. And the second item we're going to provide is an overarching update on the legislative calendar and what's in front of you. So I'll just move through. That's our overview. DWR, been a great partner. We've actually gotten funding from them, not just for our strategic water supply assessment, but also for from the Lagunitas Creek restoration work that you just heard about. For the multi-benefit program, we are shifting to the strategic water supply assessment that is mostly done. And so we'll be extending the date and just closing that grant out in the next couple of months. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Haley, and she's going to provide us with an overview of some of the legislative items that we're tracking and the recommendation that we have for the board.
Good evening.
Yes.
Yep.
Good evening, Haley Eligio, Principal Grant and Legislative Analyst. I will be going through our legislative update. So the district regularly tracks state and federal legislation that may affect the district, and we've been tracking a number of items in the current session that we wanted to bring to your attention. So we'll be discussing 2 federal bills and 2 state bills that the staff is recommending for a position of support. House Resolution 403, Senate Bill 670, Assembly Bill 372, and Assembly Bill 846. And we'll walk through each of those. And then in addition to the bills that we're presenting on, you have an attachment of additional items that the staff is recommending that we watch. And these are just bills that are still relevant to the district, but would have less of a direct impact on or benefit to the district's work. And then just quickly an overview of where we are in the current legislative session. So we're still fairly early on in the 2025 to 2026 California State Legislative Session, which began on January 6th. We've already passed the deadline to submit or introduce new bills, which was on February 21st. And then through the end of May, committees will be reviewing and voting on bills. We are coming up on the deadline for each house to pass bills introduced in that house on June 6th, followed closely by the deadline to pass the state budget on June 15th. And then from there, each house has until September 12th to pass bills, and then the governor will have until October 12th to sign or veto bills passed by the legislature. All right. The first bill we wanted to bring to your attention is a federal bill, HR 403, Preventing Our Next Natural Disaster Act, introduced by Representative Eric Swalwell. HR 403 aims to strengthen the nation's resilience against natural disasters through enhanced pre-disaster mitigation efforts. And this one is of interest to the district as it would increase FEMA funding for pre-disaster mitigation assistance in high-risk communities, including Marin County, for projects such as water infrastructure upgrades and forest health work. And again, we're still early on in the legislative process, so this bill is still currently in committee, and staff is recommending a position of support on this one. And then the next bill that we wanted to bring to your attention is also a federal bill, S670, Protect the West Act, introduced by Senator Michael Bennet. This one is of interest to the district as it aims to enhance wildfire resilience, forest health, and water security across the western U.S. By investing $60 billion in restoration and resilience projects that measurably improve watershed function, forest conditions, and wildlife habitat. S670 is also still in committee, and staff is recommending a position of support. The next bill that we wanted to highlight is our first of two state bills, AB 372. AB 372 would establish the Rural Water Infrastructure for Wildfire Resilience Program within the California Office of Emergency Services, or Cal OES. And this one is of interest to the district as the program would provide state matching funds to communities within the wildland-urban interface to improve water system infrastructure. This one is contingent on Prop 4 funding being appropriated to Cal OES. This AB 372 is still in committee, and staff is recommending a position of support. And then lastly, we'd like to highlight AB 846, introduced by Assemblymember Damon Connolly, which would provide local agencies a voluntary streamlined process that prioritizes wildfire preparedness activities and community safety while upholding environmental laws. This one isn't directly applicable to the district because we currently have a document that we conduct our wildfire preparedness work under, but staff still feel it's important and of interest to the district broadly because it could support countywide wildfire activities and would help our partners streamline and scale their wildfire mitigation work. AB 846 is still in committee, and staff is recommending a position of support. And then in closing, staff will continue to track state and federal legislation and funding measures on the watch list, participate in policy and legislative committees, and continue to review bills relevant to the district's work. And then for the item before you, staff is recommending that the board approve the DWR resolution. And then for the legislative items, staff is asking the board to review and comment, and then we plan to bring them back to a future meeting to adopt a position.
Thank you for clarifying. Also, all good? Okay. Larry, any comments? Nope. Ranjiv?
Welcome, Helly, to the district. Just first a question. Could you just remind us what's included, what Prop 4? I know this is generally a bond that was approved by voters, but can you just tell us, give us some more background on what's included?
Yeah, so Prop 4 is a climate bond that was approved in the state of California that's going to be providing funding to a lot of the agencies that the district has historically gotten grants from. That's going to be distributed for all types of projects, from restoration to water supply to forest resiliency types of work. We are tracking funding as it goes through the budget cycle to see which of the organizations that we work with will be funded at what levels and what programs will be receiving that money. We do know that Wildlife Conservation Board, the Coastal Conservancy, California Department of Fish and Wildlife are some of the agencies that will be receiving funds through Prop 4 and will be applying for those funds for projects such as Lagunitas Creek for implementation of our BIFIP and for water supply projects as we can.
That's encouraging. And then just Haley, on AB 846 from Connolly, just to confirm, this is a bit, it's funnily, it's a streamlining process basically for vegetation management related to fire mitigation, but it's voluntary, meaning that I guess now agencies will have the option as to whether to go through a more streamlined process or the more intensive reviews that were previously required.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's a voluntary process, and agencies would be able to submit plans to CDFW, and then the bill would establish a time. CDFW would have 90 days to respond to those and issue permits.
We've seen similar types of bills come forward to support restoration work in previous years. I think there are entities throughout California that have endangered species that are listed at California level that require take, that have become a real barrier for implementation of work. The district, has a strong avoidance approach for the work that we do, but we do see how this could support some folks in the county to do work. But you do have to go through a process, develop a plan, submit that plan for review, and it just triggers a kind of expedited review from CDFW to support that project, is how we understand it.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments?
Couple questions. When we talk about supporting, what does that actually entail?
So supporting would mean that we would actively engage in advocating for a measure. So we would send letters of support, both independently as a district as well as through coalitions such as Aqua.
Right.
And maybe go through what the different levels of options that we have.
So right now we just have watch and support, and then items on the watch list simply means that they are relevant to our work, and we're just tracking them as they move further along in that legislative process.
Well, we also would be able to oppose, certainly. We don't have any items tonight we'd
Thank you.
suggest.
Great.
And then have you looked at all at the SB 31 that is trying to push us a little further down the line in terms of water recycling?
So we have been tracking SB 31, and we've been participating in the AQUA, the Association of California Water Agencies committees, to understand that bill. There's not a direct benefit to how the district currently uses recycled water for our system that would significantly change. So at this point, we're just pointing out a watch position, but we can, bring that back as it goes through the process if there's updates that are meaningful for a position of support.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Sean and Haley. No questions. I do appreciate Assemblyman Connolly's effort on 846, and thanks for the update, and we look forward to more. Any public comments on these matters?
Yes, we have two speakers, Phil Sauter and Larry Minikis.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's good to see how actively we're pursuing grants, especially those that lead to stretching our local water supply and making sure we don't go thirsty during the next drought. Earlier today, I did a quick search and was impressed by the number of agencies offering multiple grants for water conservation. The clear objectives centered around using existing water supplies wisely. Two other themes that ran through these grant opportunities were equity among all users and using data to identify the best opportunities for saving water and increasing the likelihood of success. Of course, these days, grant money isn't a slam dunk. As funds become more limited, it will be even more important for grant winners to make a compelling case for why their proposal should be selected. Marin Water has several reasons why we should be selected for conservation grants. First, after the last drought, we reduced our daily per capita use from 120 gallons per capita per day to 100. Second, we brought our residential winter indoor use down from 60 gallons per capita per day to 40. Third, we reduced our residential summer outdoor water use from 115 gallons per capita per day to 90. However, we've also burdened ourselves with some reasons why we would not be selected for a conservation grant. Since that 2021 low of 100 gallons per capita per day, we're now creeping up to 105. And while our winter water use has stayed in the 40 gallon per capita per day range, our summer water use is building back up from 90 gallons per capita per day to 105. And during the past couple months, we're seeing a nearly a 10% increase in daily production versus last year. In my opinion, the way to turn these recent backslides into an asset rather than a liability is to dive into the reasons why we were able to make such good progress after the drought, why we've been able to hang on to those reduced winter water numbers, and why we're now starting to return to our pre-drought wasteful summer numbers. Inside our computers, we have the data to explain this. And if we can agree to start using it to explain our successes, as well as develop a program to understand and overcome our recent backsliding, it seems to me that we could make a compelling case for why Marin Water is the ideal recipient for a conservation grant that would let us provide an example to other water districts facing similar problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minnicus, and then Marilyn Price, please.
Yes, I appreciate the presentation, but I also want to call attention to SB 607, which is going to help to streamline CEQA in very specific cases. And a couple of those specific cases are going to affect MMWD considerably, because it's going to help to remove procedural barriers that are currently slowing down wildfire protection, infrastructure resiliency, and regional planning efforts. And it's going to allow you to proceed without having to worry about outside smaller events causing CEQA events causing problems. I'm not saying this quite correctly, but it will streamline. It's going to make it much easier for these projects to go forward while still ensuring environmental protections. And that's the most critical thing. There's an article in the paper this morning. It's completely incorrect. It's saying it's going to gut CEQA. It's saying it's dangerous. This is not true. There's some fear out there from some of the environmental organizations as to what this bill is going to do. It's actually going to be very helpful to our efforts to make our communities safer and to give us greater water resiliency. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marilyn Price.
Yes, just listening to Phil Sauter talk about improving our water conservation for funding purposes. I want to thank Director Smith for pointing out Phil's contributions, and very nice to hear about the applause the Mill Valley Outdoor Art Club gave to MMWD at their recent event. I sincerely hope that you continue to not only have conservation as a top priority, but as time goes by, that you put more and more effort into increasing water conservation efforts in Marin. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
All right, terrific. So it'd be great to have a motion and a second to, if people want to approve the DWR resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the changes to our current grant with DWR.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Mayer.
Aye.
Director Russell.
Aye.
Director Kush.
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Haley. Welcome to the team. And Ben. And we'll move on to our annual strategic work plan progress update.
Okay, this is an update on our 2025 annual work plan that, as you know, is derived from our 5-year strategic plan, along with other priorities that have subsequently emerged. As a reminder, the projects and initiatives in the annual work plan are beyond all the day-to-day work that keeps the water flowing 24/7, the bills paid, customers informed, and so much more. As I go through this, I'm not going to speak on every item. There's some that are highlighted, but if there's questions on the ones that aren't highlighted, feel free, of course, and we'll talk about those. So let's get rolling. So reduce potable water use is goal 1, objective 1. Appropriately, it's really the highest priority currently and historically in this district. We've highlighted the 5-year master plan that was developed. It has many innovative programs to try and push the boundaries of what we can do with water conservation, including kind of reimagining our school education program. That's just one of a whole number of innovative programs in the master plan. Also highlighted is the leak detection, very important work that's gone on, and we've updated the board initially and will update as that effort, that pilot concludes. This one is really an interesting one. It came from a board member as we were developing the strategic plan of that we have, of course, a cash for grass lawn removal program incentives, and Fire Safe Marin and the authority are moving with programs to change landscaping as well. And the kind of question is, how can we, and if so, how can we harmonize these two efforts to get a benefit? And initial discussions have really been positive, and there's already kind of cross marketing going on. So this effort, I think, makes a lot of sense for us, and we'll continue to pursue that. Here, Nicasio Spillway, of course, a high priority effort that we're really, as noted tonight, in the early stages on. And we're very focused at this point in all aspects, including design, environmental issues downstream of the dam, and then the upstream issues that we've heard about tonight, we've been talking about, and we expect over time to understand the situation much better. Oh yeah, the little roadmap project and selection of our atmospheric river capture, again, another very significant priority that's moving forward. The board has awarded some contracts to allow that to really get underway as it is, and we'll be keeping the board updated, as you've asked, as we move forward in that project. The Sonoma Water Agreement, after a bit of time, we do have a schedule where we expect it in August to get adopted, but even more so, and somewhat linked with the next highlighted item, there's a growing awareness and understanding that this project is a good project, not just for us, but for the region, and there's regional benefits. And it's kind of just nice to see the efforts have paid off in terms of working with our colleagues and the other contractor agencies in Sonoma to appreciate what we're trying to do in partnership and concert with them.
But just on the timing of the Sonoma Water Agreement, I believe our existing agreement expires in July. So
right. So we are, good question. We are Molly Saluswi is drafting up an extension and working with Sonoma on that to get us through this period.
And we would expect to bring that to the board as well for approval to adopt an extension of our current contract term to get us through the bigger approval process that we're looking at.
Got it.
This, what we've talked about a little bit, this is moving away from gaseous ammonia to a liquid ammonia sulfate. And we've done our piloting and we're operating now at Bontempi with ammonia sulfate. And we plan to make that pilot a permanent facility and then move to our two other facilities. And we'd really get out of this potentially hazardous gaseous chemical, both for the community as well as workers, and a lot of regulations that come with that. So that's an important effort that's moving forward. We've kept the board up to date on the transition from our water quality lab, and that's so far seems to be going fairly well. And we also joined Aqua subcommittee on post-fire water quality to understand kind of the latest and greatest and what folks are thinking on that to, you know, as part of our networking and understanding the broader industry. The water system master plan, we did in January present to the board kind of an update on our capital program and the efforts that go into developing the current CIP, the upcoming CIP in conjunction with the budget, and explained how the water system master plan, how elements from that are feeding into the overall prioritization, whether it's hardening, single points of failure, and a whole range of other criteria and advancements that feed into how do we prioritize apples and oranges in this large capital budget we have, given, you know, the very large need that we have. So I think really good work going into that.
Keep going.
So in operations, standard operating procedures are critical for certain tasks, whether they're critical tasks that aren't done too often or some tasks that are done often. And periodically, you do need to review the SOPs you have. Are they current? Do folks understand them? So anyway, this just reflects that process. That's an ongoing annual process. In the latest, they've identified some to update and some potentially new ones that they'll be developing. Well, we've also really been kind of a new initiative for O&M folks to be getting out and partnering and working with other agencies. And we send crews to different, probably mostly the larger East Bay districts, and learn from them, whatever it happens to be, you know, some new technique they have, some new tool they have, and we bring that information back, develop kind of a deeper level of contact. So I'm really pleased at this ongoing effort that we're kind of embracing of, we don't have to create the wheel every time. There's so much work going on in the broad industry. Fleet, as we're converting our fleet, of course, to continuing the conversion to electric, we need chargers. And so we'll be doing that, not just for our fleet, but also for our employees, as more and more are getting electric cars. So it's just reflecting kind of an internal but important issue.
We have the power.
We are looking at that. I believe, yeah, we'll have to do some upgrades certainly at this facility. I'm not sure about across the street.
Ben, just on the other renewable power opportunities, I know, and it's indicated here that we're evaluating the clear wells at the San Geronimo treatment plant and are hopeful that they're going to be able to carry solar panels. In the past, we've noted that in case they don't, they're not a good option, that the roof of the treatment plant itself might be a possibility. I know I saw in the in your report this month that work on the roof has started. Does that affect the timing, you know, of whether or not we can still put in solar panels
I
there?
do believe as part of that, we are looking at that. Is that, yes. So it's good. Yes. So as part of that project, we are assessing solar panels on the roof, and it's not necessarily mutually exclusive.
Right.
If it looks good, we could do both. So we'll be reporting back to the board on that.
Great. Thank you.
EOC tabletop, it's super important. You know, you have a plan, but it doesn't mean too much if folks aren't familiar with the emergency response plan. So doing tabletop exercises is critical, and that's what this reflects. We did some training, and the next one reflects, we did hazardous material confined training with Marin County Fire at San Geronimo. And we have coming up, we'll be talking to them about our dam emergency action plan. And we'll be doing that with all emergencies to really engage and be partners. So you have relationships in the event you have to work together, certainly in a big emergency. We've been talking even tonight, Lagunitas Creek restoration, great work, and it's continuing. as you heard, we're going out to bid, awarding the contract, and also doing work at the Nicasio Creek Fishery Study as part of the spillway potential raise. The BIFAP, our kind of key effort for fuel reduction and other enhancements there, continues. And we've been able to really get continued bigger bites out of it, benefiting from grant funding. In workforce development, we had brought, it's been, I don't know how long, a couple years or so, the concept of bringing on ranger trainees out there. And we brought 2 on, and you can see our first one completed the post-training, which was great. And will be the next one's going through that as well. And a whole number of programs, of course, in the watershed with the community. A key one is hosting interpretive activities, so walks with the rangers, that sort of stuff. And does seem the community really appreciates that and enjoys that. And as time allows, they're carving that out to do those routinely. Azalea Hills, a big effort. Gosh, it's been so long and but successful. And so we completed the Liberty Gulch segment and opened that up now to multi-uses. And we're currently designing work for a parking lot, and that'll get done at some point. The whole project will be complete, but a real advancement and also a demonstration that we can do these difficult projects, even on the watershed where there's different interests at play. So it's just really rewarding to see this project reach fruition. And we resolved the CEQA challenges on the e-bikes, and a new e-bike pilot to begin July 1. And we'll be talking with the board about other potential steps in terms of uses in the watershed going forward. Watershed housing, I think we really mean kind of facilities. And we did get approval from the board to use some Mount Tam funds to support a watershed facility assessment, and we'll be doing that. The connection fee, it's done, it's highlighted. That was a big effort from finance and working through all the issues. It was important to get it done in a timely fashion because as new development happens, this ensures they'll be paying their fair share, their buy-in that benefits our current ratepayers. And, as the RHNA housing numbers go, we do want to be current on a connection fee program that reflects, an accurate, up-to-date buy-in fee. SAP is moving forward. We awarded the contract on kind of this first phase, payroll and HR modules, and that will be going a very big effort for us. And we're transitioned, as you're aware, to a new online customer bill payment system. It did have a few bumps as we did it, but I'd say customer service staff really worked hard and many hours to address the volume of calls that were coming in, as well as some support from IT on some technological issues. But I think we're past that for the most part at this point. We're pursuing a grant for Lagunitas Creek Phase 2, I believe, with the Wildfire Conservation Board Sean mentioned. And we're finalizing our 5-year training program. As you know, we brought on a dedicated trainer for the district, first time ever, that's been providing some training, but also very focused on developing a comprehensive 5-year program that takes all the needs into account. employee engagement, the Ripple Committee, as we've been updating the board, rolled out a new district-wide team building policy and now is working hard on designing a district-wide job shadowing program that's actually very exciting. It's going to be fun to get that out. Accessibility, the first thing we're doing is as we migrate the website, ensuring we're meeting the new requirements for ADA and accessibility issues for the website. We're also, which isn't noted here, we're updating our overall facilities plan that periodically you have to do. And there's been some questions that have come in that we'll be providing updates. And we're, kind of kicking off, more than kicking off, I don't know, fair to say we're in the midst of our new big turf rebate campaign with a lot of elements, a lot of outreach, and really kind of a targeted program. You can see if you have over 50 square feet, you'd expect to get notified directly by us and try and engage and see where we go with that.
And I believe, Carrie has presented this as an experiment or an evaluation to try to determine how effective these types of outreach to high water user initiatives are. Just want to confirm that, ideally we're getting feedback from this that allows us to iterate and improve.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be, we aren't isolating the variables to get granular. What I mean by that is we're doing really considerable outreach. We're also benefiting from an increase in incentives that came from a couple different places. So anyway, we have both those variables. We won't exactly know, but we do expect to see a bump, hopefully significant one. A tremendous amount of work is going into this. Kind of creative storytelling and campaigns. We've completed Lagunitas Creek Enhancement Phase 1 and Pine Mountain Tunnel Project. And then we created a video explaining the Atmospheric River Capture Project. All of these are really wonderful products, and I think enhance the community's understanding of what we're doing. And a tremendous amount of work around youth education with the watershed. You can see in the box a lot of activities that go on to connect with the youth and other customers. Professional development, kind of a renewed effort to encourage staff to submit papers, and we will be staff presenting at the coming ACE conference in Denver on our microturbine evaluation, and we're also presenting an upcoming water efficiency symposium on our residential program. There's a lot of interest in what we're doing. The intranet, we're migrating to 365. That's in progress, and so far seems to be going fairly well. And as we noted, we're kicked off and we're moving the first piece of SAP renewal forward. So with that, any questions you may have?
Diana? Nope. Larry, good? Yeah. Ranjiv?
Yeah, no, thanks for the update, Ben. Looks good.
I just think it could have had a little more fanfare. I mean, oh my gosh, what do? We got e-bikes approved. We have an incredible water efficiency program that's going on in this district, and I'm super proud of this work. I would like to see in our next water efficiency and conservation update at a planning meeting, a deep dive as best we can into the high water users. And as much as we can see the success of this program, maybe we can look at, in terms of single family or residential users, like what the top 1%, were we able to reduce their use a bit, or 5% or 10% or 30%? Where are we finding success with our programs? Where are we not finding success? And how can we better target specifically the largest users. Phil's been asking for this for 2.5 years, and I think it's time we reported out on it. Probably the most important thing that we can do. But thank you for the update. I really appreciate, first of all, that you put a stake in the ground. You set dates around these things, and you miss some and you hit some and you do better. And I just really appreciate the report. Any public comments?
Yes, Larry Menikis, please.
Good evening again, folks. I'll keep my remarks brief and to the point. You know, as you know, I've spoken about the importance of the ongoing watershed protection and the long overdue need to update the 2005 Road and Trails Management Plan, the RTMP. So rather than restate these concerns, I want to focus on one request tonight. As referenced in the strategic work plan, I want to thank staff and leadership for now including the RTMP update as a third quarter objective without the previous pending funding qualifier that was there in an earlier published version just yesterday. That's a meaningful step forward, and I truly appreciate the change. That said, the third quarter is right around the corner. If we want to meet that timeline, the funding mechanism needs to be identified and approved as soon as possible. Delaying this further will only widen the planning gap at a time when trail use, climate pressures, and fire risk are all increasing. I also appreciate many of the positive developments reflected in the progress report, as particularly the focus on water efficiency, the advancement of AMI, the launch of the new leak detection pilots, and continued movement on the atmospheric river capture project. These near and long-term investments reflect the district's serious commitment to water supply resilience, and I commend staff and leadership for driving these initiatives forward. But resilience also includes the stewardship of our lands and those that make up our watershed. And right now, the 2005 RTMP remains the most structurally outdated part of the district's overall planning framework. Please take this final step. Move this from a listed object to a funded, scheduled action. Let's make this long-term needed update finally happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, staff. Everyone, I know you're speaking on behalf of many people working hard, so appreciate that. Future board meetings. Terry.
This Thursday, we'll have the Finance and Administration Committee meeting, and it's only the FAC. Yep. The main focus or the main topic that morning will be the insurance renewal for fiscal year 25-26. Tuesday, May 27th is the Planning Committee meeting / special meeting of the Board of Directors. Two of the topics that are scheduled are the Nicasio Spillway Project Update and the Water Efficiency AMI Update. Then heading into June 3rd, which isn't that far away, at 5:30, we have a closed session at the beginning of a regular board meeting. And that main focus for the board meeting, the regular board meeting, is the adoption of the 2-year budget. June 12th, 9:30 in the morning is the Watershed Committee meeting. A couple of the topics that are tentative are the wildfire modeling update and the roads and trails update. In terms of our regular or our regional meetings, tomorrow is the Tomales Bay Foundation meeting at 3 p.m. Then on the next, there are no more for this month. And then in June, there are 2 regional meetings. Friday, June 6th at between 9 and 12 is the Lagunitas Creek TAC meeting. And then also same day is the North Bay Watershed Association meeting. I have no further meetings to discuss.
We will move to adjourn at 7:47. Thank you.
Thank you.